So here we come back to the case that we started with, where it looked on paper what you're supposed to do, lots of variety, lots of coursework, few exams, masses of written feedback, learning outcomes criteria, and yet it's not working. And I think what's going on here is that all students in this degree program is that all students are doing are the marked assignments, not doing anything else. That's the first problem. They need a much wider variety of course demands to get them to put the time in. Now, some of them will be interested in the subject matter, but they still only do that. In focus groups, you do find differences between students. An English literature course at a Midlands ex-polytechnic that won't be named, there were 18-year-olds who were very strategic about marks and grades, and there were mature students who are only interested in English literature who ignored the criteria and did whatever they were interested in. And you got that within one degree program. So you certainly get that. What you don't have in that case study is anything that would spread demands, spread student effort about. Unpredictable exams are quite good at spreading effort across topics. It's a very reactionary kind of thing to say, but if all else fails, exams are quite good at spreading student effort across topics, even if they're not very good at spreading students' time across the term. There's almost no required formative assessment on this degree program. The difference between the assignments was causing students major problems. They talked about it all the time. They talked about differences between teachers in their criteria all the time. Even though it was written down, they were just incredibly confused. And there was very little sense of progression of standards. It was just being bounced from one odd task to another odd task. I've seen degree programs where the teachers have recognised this and they've said, let's keep to a minimum range of, say, 5 different things that students will encounter repeatedly, and we'll be consistent about the criteria, and we'll have standards that progress across the 3 years, and we'll all mark within the same framework, so students have repeated opportunities to get better and better at doing these things, and we'll try and make as many of the early ones as possible formative only, so we'll put the marks on ones that happen later in the program. And they've got an assessment book which tries to explain to students, when we ask you to write a report, this is what we mean by a report. Here's an example of a good one. And that will be the same. Whenever you encounter a report, that's what we're talking about. We're trying to get some consistency across different occasions when students do things. So they understand, have a chance to learn to understand what it is, internalise the criteria for it, and supervise themselves in relation to that. The feedback is no use to students because the next assignment is different. They are very explicit about that. And 4 weeks is much too slow. It's just no use to them. They just said, water under the bridge, water under the bridge. They had 15,000 words of feedback each, and they said water under the bridge. What you change here, I think you've reduced the variety of assignments and plan progression. I was having a chat at the start. Oxford Brookes has been criticised by the QAA and external examiners for having big differences between different subject areas in terms of average marks. If average marks in philosophy might be much higher than average marks in publishing or something like that. They say this is a quality problem, sort it out. And they tried to find out what it was about, and they couldn't make any. They did sophisticated multivariate analysis for students' A-level grades and all kinds of class compact hours. They couldn't find anything at all that could predict the student marks. And then an ethnographer called Anton Havnes from Oslo was staying in the Ask Centre, and he said, just tell me which of the subject areas with the high average marks and which of the low average marks. And surreptitiously, without telling anybody, he just hung out with them to try and see what was going on. And he came back after a couple of months and he said, the subject areas with high average marks, the teachers have curry together on Fridays. They talk to each other about what they're doing across modules. They have a shared conception of where they're trying to get to and the role their module plays in getting there. They talk about marking and standards all the time. They double mark things across modules to get shared understanding of what they're doing and things like that. The subject areas with low average marks, if you talk to a teacher, they'll say something like, well, frankly, I've got my hands full teaching my module, so I don't even go to the departmental meetings.
So what was making it work wasn't it, if you looked at their documentation, they were both meeting requirements to exactly the same extent. What mattered was the way the community of teachers worked on it together.
I think in this case, the teachers in this programme, this is the toughest thing, they're going to have to give up some personal autonomy about doing whatever they fancy in their module that they're very fond of, and talk to others about collaborating on something that works at programme level across modules. Because it's the differences between modules that are causing many of the problems, like not reading the feedback. So you've got this huge, they spend more time marking than they do teaching, it's a waste of time, how do you solve it? You've got to get some kind of coherent notion. So these cycles are going on, these cycles are cycling forwards across modules. Now you can, in some cases, Worcester is putting things back together in bigger, longer lumps, so the cycles are within modules because the modules are bigger. And there's a lot of that going on across the UK at the moment.